Welcome once again to Breakfast Central. Now, Nigeria is set to host its national population census exercise after 17 years, after it held the last one in 2006 and failed to hold in 2016. Now, the most populous African nation has an estimated population put at over 200 million people, and according to the United Nations, the figure may double by 2050. The census, which was earlier scheduled for March 29, 2023, was shifted due to the nation's gubernatorial and legislative elections. The Federal Executive Council recently approved the sum of 2.8 billion naira for the NPC to procure software for the exercise, which could be conducted digitally. However, calls have come from some quarters for the federal government to postpone the census indefinitely due to the huge budget deficit the country grapples with. The current election tribunal challenges the rate of unemployment and, of course, many other reasons.
Recently, a lawsuit against the National Population Commission for the upcoming census to be postponed by 6 months due to the current lack of adequate preparation by NPC, paucity of funding, and lack of adequate publicity has been filed by lawyers. One of the legal practitioners joins us this morning from the Federal Capital Territory, and he's Mr. Okpatola Victor. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
All right, now let's get into it. The federal government has indefinitely postponed training for the National Population Commission, that's the NPC, enumerators and supervisors ahead of the 2023 national census, which was slated for April 13th before the postponement. Doesn't this give credence to the fact that they, probably aren't ready? And, what are your thoughts on this?
It gives credence to the fact that the National Population Commission is not ready yet. Now, the census is supposed to come up by May 3rd, thereabout, and 3 weeks to the census, you are cancelling trainings that are supposed to be for your enumerators and facilitators. This goes to show that the commission is not yet effectively ready to carry out this germane and important function in our national life. And apart from that, we must understand that the importance of census can be equated to affirmative action, especially for minority tribes in this country, to ensure that they are counted equally as much as every other person. Now, if you look at it very well, there is a right that is an inherent right in every individual in this country, pursuant to the powers granted upon the National Population Commission by the Constitution and its enabling act, to count every individual in this country. So there is an inherent right for everybody in this country, every citizen in this country, to be counted. So the main fulcrum of this suit is, first of all, to show to the court that NPC, National Population Commission, is not effectively ready. First. Secondly, to show that the paucity of funding which is currently experiencing cannot make it to effectively carry out its duties and responsibility under the law. And thirdly, now for instance, now the commission budgeted about 860-something billion naira, almost $1 trillion naira, for this census operation thereabout. And so far, it has gotten about 45% of the funding. And it is understandable, it is everywhere, it is understandable that funding is essential to the effectiveness of such census as this. So the fact that, also coupled with the fact that publicity has been porous and hollow, the national election we currently have has engulfed the census, the little and meager publicity that National Population Commission has been doing in regards to census in this country. Now, for instance, I'm in Abuja, that's the Federal Capital Territory. Even in Abuja, which is the seat of national power in this country, the advocacy, the publicity has been tremendously low. The publicity has only picked up recently in about a week, where you see street banners all over the major metropolitan part of the FCT. This is to show everybody, to show you that first of all, there is deeply lack of publicity. There is serious possible fund, and most importantly, Yes.
Yeah, I'm sorry to cut you in, but I wanted to, quickly just bring in one of the things that I think Nigerians are most worried about. Because from what you've described, it doesn't seem like the NPC is very capable of carrying out a very, and a proper census across the length and breadth of Nigeria. One of the things that Nigerians will point out is Nigeria's ministries, departments, and agencies, and how they can very easily call out for hundreds of billions of naira and not be able to account for those funds eventually when they present a result of what they've done with that money. INEC, of course, has come under humongous criticism for spending more than 300 billion naira to carry out an election in the last few weeks. And, you can see how that turned out with the level of criticism it received. Now the NPC is asking for almost 1 trillion naira. Does anybody, and that includes you and the people who you've spoken with and any other person, trust that the NPC will be able to carry out a proper census? Is there other ways that they maybe will be able to carry out a proper census in Nigeria? Is there ways that technology can also come into play here, that Nigerians will trust the result and the outcome of this census? Remember and keep in mind that since the 60s and the 70s, Nigerians have had doubts as to the actual figures that have been presented as Nigeria's census figures. So do you trust the NPC in any way that they will be able to? Or is this just another waste of Nigeria's taxpayers, hundreds of billions of naira?
First of all, trust is not demanded. Trust is earned. The NPC as a commission has done nothing to earn the trust of Nigerians or this country as the matter of fact. Now, there are actually 2 lawsuits. The first lawsuit is in regards to the one, asking the court to postpone this coming census. Then the second lawsuit, I wrote a letter to the National Population Commission demanding some very, very vital document that will show transparency in the amount of money that has been received, in the technology that has been slated to be used, the due diligence report of this technology, the stress report of this technology, all these information that were requested for, none of them was granted. None of them was issued by the commission. So we're in court in regards to that. So if we have a government parastatal that is shady, that is dodgy with the funds, with the report, with technology that is supposed to use for this census, then how are we supposed to trust the system? Realizing the recent massive loss of trust, deficit of trust, which we have recently experienced with INEC and the tremendous amount of money that went into the process. So it shows, glaringly that one, there's no trust in the system. There is no trust, that NPC can effectively carry out its function, given the tremendous amount of money that would be used for this process.
All right, now let's talk about the current report. United Nations reports that Nigeria could become the world's 3rd most populous nation, overtaking the United States. How does this impact the need for the census, or the need for us to make the census compulsory?
The first thing is, what we have done so far, we are not saying the census should not hold. What we want, what the lawsuit is seeking to achieve, is to ensure that there's an effective and efficient census. That there's an effective and efficient census. So we want the census to hold, but we want it to be held by an efficient National Population Commission. Census is important. We all want this census. This is important for our national and economic life, for business, for investors all over the world. So it is important. So we want this census to hold. We believe it is germane to our national and economic life. So it is important that this census hold. But more importantly is the fact that census should be held effectively. There must be a trust in the system. We can't afford to waste almost 1 trillion naira in an ineffective, inefficient process again in this country. We can't go through the system of INEC again in National Population Commission. And coupled with the fact that one thing is important that a lot of persons are not talking about is the security state of this country. Currently, as we have it, there are a lot of this part of this country that are currently engulfed in banditry, and there are a lot of this part of this country are ungoverned space currently. So this issue of security is one of the important things that must be looked at while we have to postpone this census, and that is one of the reasons why we are actually in court.
Well, good thing you mentioned security, and one of the things you also spoke about is how, we can't afford to waste, hundreds of billions of naira. But I'm sure that we can. We have in the past, we will continue. If you remember, if you've been following the news, and I don't know why this just seems to be happening at the end of the administration, of the current administration. If you've been following the news, Sunday Diary was on the news asking for 21 billion naira to renovate a stadium. Remember a few years ago, we took out $1.5 billion, to renovate the Port Harcourt refinery. 300 billion naira plus was spent on the elections. So it's not like we can. I'm sure we can. We can bring out more hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of billions of naira to give to some agency that from what we've seen, would bring, results that Nigerians would not be satisfied with, and we would move on. This is really the picture that continuously is painted in Nigeria, and this is what we've continued to deal with. Good thing you mentioned security once again. Will Nigerians be satisfied with the numbers that would come out from northern Nigeria? If you've seen what's going on in southern Kaduna in the last long while, it's a lot. The final question to you is, what do you expect to be the Nigerian government's reaction with this petition that has been sent? And of course, do you think that as we wait for the president-elect and for the petitions tribunal, those things will also affect, the conversation on census?
Firstly, in regards to the fact that we always find a way to cough up huge amount of money for wasted projects and irrelevant projects. Yes, we always find a way to do that, even if it means borrowing at horrifying percentage from international community. But the problem is we rob the future when we continue to do this. So one thing is important. One thing that is important is there is always a propensity by people in power to misuse trust. So the onus is on the citizen. The role of the citizen is eternal vigilance. So when these people that are in power, once again want to misuse the trust in which we have, donated to them, the onus is on the people, to take practical steps, to ensure that such thing does not happen again. Now, in regards to your question, first, it is important that individuals participate in the census. Security insecurity in this country will definitely impact the census. Why do I say this? Now, MPC have said that insecurity will not impact it because if there are spaces that they cannot count because of insecurity, that they have a system, a demographic system on ground which they will count it. But the problem is that system cannot be effective. It's a system based on assumption and presumption. Now, how do they go about it? If there is a particular location that cannot be counted, they just come, create a system, a demographic system that will assume, given the previous data of that particular environment, to reach an assumption of the present number that ought to be there. So, ought to be there does not necessarily mean that is currently there. So, insecurity that we are actually facing in numerous parts of this country will negatively impact the efficiency and effectiveness of this census. Now, a lot of persons in this country are IDPs. They are not currently where they're supposed to be. Now, one of the major importance of census is allocation of resources, allocation of amenities, education, transportation. So if there is a particular number of people in a particular environment, then the government will understand that we need to allocate this number of resources to this environment, this number of amenities, this number of educational facilities, transportation facilities. But if insecurity does not allow these people to be effectively and efficiently counted, then we have robbed them of those necessary future amenities or future allocations of billions of public funds. So insecurity will definitely rob the effectiveness of this census, like we have argued.
Yeah, Mr. Okwatala, in the interest of time, we might have to wrap up the conversation, but thank you so much for sharing your time with us this morning and explaining so clearly what this is, what your demands are. We hope that the Nigerian government is listening and that at the end of the day, the interest is in the benefit of the Nigerian people.
Thank you very much for having me.